Welcome to today's deep dive, where we'll be exploring the fall of the Roman Republic.
Oh, okay.
Our source material is a podcast episode called Page Turner,
Okay.
and they're discussing Robin Seager's book, The Fall of the Roman Republic.
Interesting.
And then one of the things that really grabbed my attention was
Yeah.
this argument that events from ancient Rome
hmm
are surprisingly relevant to today's political landscape.
It is a compelling idea.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. We often think of ancient history as something so distant and
Yeah,
irrelevant to our modern lives,
right.
but the Roman Republic's collapse
Yeah.
offers some pretty striking parallels
Yeah,
to contemporary politics.
that's right.
It really makes you wonder if we're doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Well, let's set the scene a bit.
Okay.
The Roman Republic was this powerhouse, expanding its territory, conquering left and right.
Sure.
But like any empire, there were cracks beneath the surface. What were some of the issues that started to weaken the Republic?
Well, imagine a building with a fancy facade, but a crumbling foundation.
Oh,
That's kind of what was happening in the Roman Republic.
okay.
Corruption was rampant, political divisions were deepening, and personal ambition was running amok.
Wow.
In the midst of all this, you had powerful military leaders
Mm-hmm.
like Julius Caesar and Pompey
Right.
vying for control.
Right.
Their rivalry and the ambitions of others like them ultimately played a huge role in the Republic's downfall.
So it wasn't just one bad apple, so to speak, but a
Yeah,
whole system starting to decay.
exactly. And what's fascinating is that the book
Yeah.
that we're discussing really delves into the lives of these key figures.
Okay.
Caesar, of course, is the most famous,
Yeah.
but you also have figures like Cicero, the brilliant orator, and Sulla, a ruthless dictator.
Right.
The book paints a vivid picture of their actions, their motivations, and how their individual choices impacted the course of history.
It sounds like a Shakespearean drama, with all these larger-than-life characters clashing and scheming. What was it about Caesar specifically that allowed him to rise to such prominence? Was it just ambition, or was there something more to it?
Caesar was undeniably ambitious, but he was also a brilliant military strategist and a charismatic leader. He had this knack for seizing opportunities in times of chaos, and he understood how to appeal to the masses. But the book emphasizes that his ambition wasn't just about ideology or even a desire for the common good. It was about raw power, about leaving his mark on history.
But didn't the Republic have systems in place to prevent one person from accumulating too much power?
That's a great question.
How did these safeguards fail?
The Roman Republic had a complex system of checks and balances designed to prevent tyranny. The Senate was meant to be the primary governing body.
Right.
But as the Republic expanded,
Yeah,
the power of military leaders grew,
right.
and they began to challenge the Senate's authority. Caesar's famous crossing of the Rubicon River with his army was a turning point,
Right.
a blatant disregard for the traditional rules, and a sign that the Republic was in serious trouble.
That's interesting. So even with checks and balances in place, things can still unravel if those safeguards aren't maintained or if powerful individuals are
Yes.
willing to flout the rules.
And that's a lesson that resonates even today, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It makes you think about the importance of upholding democratic norms and holding leaders accountable,
Yeah.
regardless of how charismatic or popular they may seem. But this all sounds very dramatic and sudden. Was the fall of the Roman Republic really this quick and decisive?
Actually, no, that's one of the key points the book makes.
Okay.
The fall of the Roman Republic wasn't a single event, but rather a long and drawn-out process.
Okay.
It was a slow burn of internal conflicts, political maneuvering, and power grabs, all culminating in the demise of this once mighty republic.
So it wasn't just one bad decision or one ambitious general,
Precise.
but a series of choices and circumstances that ultimately led to this downfall.
And I think that's a crucial point to remember as we delve deeper into this topic,
Yeah.
because it challenges this simplistic notion that history repeats itself in a predictable way.
Right.
The Roman Republic's collapse was a complex web of events, and understanding those complexities can offer valuable insights into the nature of power ambition and the fragility of even the most powerful civilizations.
I think that's a perfect place to pause, for now we've laid the groundwork exploring setting the key players and this idea that the fall of the Roman Republic wasn't a sudden implosion, but rather a long, complex process. But what were the specific factors that really pushed it over the edge, and how did those factors play out in the lives of these historical figures? Let's dig deeper into that in part 2 of our deep dive. We left off talking about how the fall of the Roman Republic wasn't a singular event, but a long and complex process.
Right?
What were some of the specific factors that really started pushing the Republic towards its eventual collapse?
Well, one factor that stands out is the growing role of the military
Okay.
in Roman politics. As the Republic expanded, powerful generals like Caesar amassed huge armies.
Right.
And these armies were often more loyal to their commanders than to the Senate.
Oh, wow.
This created a very dangerous dynamic.
So instead of just ambition, these generals also had the military might to back up their political aspirations.
That's right.
Could you say that they were essentially holding the Republic hostage with their legions?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
The traditional checks and balances of the Republic started to erode.
Yeah.
The Senate, which was supposed to be the governing body, found itself increasingly sidelined by these military strongmen.
Right.
Caesar, crossing the Rubicon River with his army, was a defining moment. It was a direct challenge to the Senate's authority,
Yeah.
a point of no return.
It's incredible how one event can become such a powerful symbol. Even today, crossing the Rubicon means making an irreversible decision.
Right.
But it wasn't just Caesar, right? The podcast also focused on Cicero, who was a brilliant orator
Yeah.
and a staunch defender of the Republic.
Right.
How did he fit into all of this?
Cicero represents the old guard,
Oh,
those
yeah.
desperately trying to cling to the ideals of the Republic. In the midst of all this chaos, he saw Caesar's ambition as a direct threat to the established order and used his powerful speeches to try and rally opposition. His speeches are still studied today as examples of political eloquence and moral courage.
So he was trying to use the power of words
Right.
to counter the power of the sword. But it sounds like his efforts were ultimately in vain.
Sadly, yes. Cicero's efforts were ultimately futile, against the tide of Caesar's growing power. But his story reminds us that even when the odds are stacked against you,
Right.
there's value in standing up for one's principles and speaking truth to power. It raises the question,
Yeah.
how do we balance idealism with pragmatism in our own political lives?
That's a great question. It makes you think about the times when we might need to take a stand, even if it feels like a lost cause.
Exactly.
But let's shift gears a bit and talk about another theme that the podcast highlighted: populism. They talked about how Caesar was a master at appealing to the masses, promising things like land reform and economic relief.
Right.
This populist approach garnered him a lot of support and further weakened the traditional power structures.
That's right. Caesar understood the power of appealing directly to the people, especially those who were feeling marginalized or left behind by the existing system. His populism, while effective, raises a question that's still relevant today. How do we separate genuine attempts to address the needs of the people
Right.
from manipulative tactics designed to gain power?
It's a classic dilemma, the charismatic leader promising solutions, but maybe with ulterior motives lurking beneath the surface. You have to wonder how much of Caesar's support came from people genuinely believing in him, and how much came from a desire for change, any change, no matter the cost.
Precisely, and it makes you wonder if similar dynamics are at play in our own political landscape today. How can we be discerning citizens able to recognize empty promises and differentiate between genuine leadership and mere populism? It's a challenge we all face.
It certainly seems like the Roman Republic had a lot of the same issues we wrestle with today, just on a grander scale with togas and legions involved. What other factors contributed to the Republic's decline?
Well, economic inequality was a major issue. The gap between the rich and the poor had been widening for decades,
Yeah.
leading to social unrest and resentment. Caesar was able to capitalize on this discontent, promising to redistribute wealth and ease the burden on the lower classes. It's interesting to consider, though, if this was a genuine concern or simply a means to an end for him.
So even back then, economic anxieties and inequalities played a huge role in shaping the political landscape. It's almost like we're looking into a distorted mirror, seeing the same issues play out across different time periods.
Exactly, and that's why studying history can be so insightful. It helps us see that the challenges we face today are not unique to our time. Humans have been grappling with these same issues of power, ambition, and inequality for centuries. The specific details may change, but the underlying dynamics remain remarkably consistent.
That's a sobering thought, but also a hopeful one. If we can recognize these patterns, maybe we can learn from the past and find better ways to navigate these challenges in our own time. But before we get too optimistic, let's take a moment to really acknowledge the gravity of the situation. The Roman Republic, despite its strengths, eventually crumbled under the weight of these internal and external pressures. What does that tell us about the nature of power and the fragility of civilizations?
The fall of the Roman Republic is a stark reminder that even the most powerful civilizations are not immune to decline. It shows how unchecked ambition and corruption, and a failure to address fundamental societal problems can lead to the downfall of even the most robust systems.
It's a cautionary tale for us all we need, to be vigilant to safeguard our own institutions, and to hold our leaders accountable, but I think that's a good place to stop for now. We've delved into some of the key factors that led to the Roman Republic's demise: the rise of military power, the allure of populism, the struggle to uphold democratic ideals, and the persistent challenges of economic inequality. But what can we, living in the 21st century, learn from these ancient events? What wisdom can we extract from the ashes of this once mighty civilization? We'll explore those crucial questions in the final part of our deep dive. We've spent this deep dive really dissecting the fall of the Roman Republic, the power struggles, the ambition, the societal issues that ultimately led to its collapse.
Right.
Now, I'm really curious, what can we actually learn from all of this? It feels almost overwhelming to think we might repeat history's mistakes. But is there a way to apply these Roman lessons to our modern world?
It's not about predicting the future or saying history repeats itself exactly.
Right.
It's more about understanding these enduring patterns
Yeah.
of human behavior,
Yeah.
the temptations of power, and how even strong systems
Mhm.
can be vulnerable.
Right.
The Roman Republic, for all its achievements, fell prey to these pressures. So the question for us becomes, how can we learn from their experience?
Right.
What wisdom can we extract from the ashes of this once mighty civilization?
Okay, so let's get practical. What are some concrete takeaways? What can we as individuals and as a society do differently?
One of the clearest lessons is the critical importance
Hmm.
of strong institutions and checks and balances.
Okay.
The Roman Republic had systems designed to prevent any one person
Right.
from becoming too powerful.
Right.
But over time, those safeguards eroded.
Right.
Today, we need to be incredibly vigilant about protecting our own democratic institutions.
Right.
We have to make sure they are resilient, resistant to manipulation, and able to adapt to changing circumstances.
So it's not enough to have laws on paper. It's about the spirit of those laws, making sure they're enforced and making sure no one is above them. That resonates deeply, especially when you look at the political landscape today, both here and around the world.
Absolutely. Another critical takeaway is the need for civic engagement.
Okay.
The Roman Republic thrived when its citizens were actively involved in public life,
Mm,
holding their leaders accountable
right.
and participating in the political process. But when apathy and disengagement set in, that's when corruption and the abuse of power can take root.
It's that classic idea that democracy is not a spectator sport. We can't just sit back and expect everything to work out. We have to be informed, engaged citizens, willing to speak up, to challenge injustice, and to hold our elected officials to the highest standards.
Exactly. And perhaps one of the most profound lessons from this whole story is the danger of unchecked ambition.
Right.
Caesar's rise, while fueled by his undeniable talents, ultimately contributed to the Republic's demise.
Right.
It highlights that slippery slope from ambition to tyranny, the seductive nature of power, and the critical need for humility and restraint.
It's a timeless cautionary tale, isn't it? The idea that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's a call to be wary of those who seek power for its own sake, to question motives, and to always prioritize the common good over personal gain.
Precisely, the fall of the Roman Republic underscores the need for ethical leadership,
Yeah.
for leaders who genuinely put the well-being of their people above their own self-interest. It's a reminder that power, when wielded responsibly, can be a force for good. But when driven by unchecked ambition, it can lead to devastating consequences.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the fall of the Roman Republic, we're left with a mix of caution and I hope a sense of empowerment. It's a sobering reminder of the fragility of civilizations, the dangers of unchecked power, and the constant need for vigilance and civic engagement. But it's also a story that can empower us, urging us to learn from the past, to safeguard our own institutions, and to demand ethical leadership from those in power.
That's beautifully put, and perhaps that's the most crucial point of all, that history, even in its darkest moments, can illuminate a path forward.
Yeah.
By studying the past, by wrestling with its complexities, we gain valuable insights into human nature, the allure and dangers of power, and the enduring challenges that societies face. And in those lessons, we may find the wisdom and courage to build a more just and equitable world.
I love that it's not about dwelling on the past or feeling doomed to repeat it, but about using it as a guide, a source of inspiration, and a reminder of our own power to shape the future. So, to everyone listening out there, what will you take away from this deep dive? How will you apply these lessons to your own life, to your community, to the choices you make each and every day? The future isn't preordained, it's a tapestry we weave together thread by thread, choice by choice, and the choices we make today will determine the fate of our own republic, our own civilization. So let's choose wisely, learn from history, and strive to create a world worthy of the sacrifices of those who came before us.